Hello, welcome to the Collab Spotlight, a space where we shine light on the voices of young change makers transforming the mining industry with bold ideas, real impact, and even more powerful partnerships across the continent and across the world. From corporate innovations to community engagement, these rising stars have set it as their mission to transform our perception of what it means to mine and what the future of mining could do when the young people are not just passive consumers of mining and its products, but active contributors to this industry.
Okay, so today we are honored to spotlight someone who sits at the intersection of sustainability, innovation, and also inclusion in mining. Today we have Murendeni Makhado.
So let's start with you as an individual. What first pulled you in and what sparked your interest in mining? Was it sustainability that started it, or was it mining at the very start?
Thank you guys. Maybe to just start off my journey, when I started off, I wasn't even familiar with the word sustainability. So it all started out of a deep curiosity just of how natural system works and how us as human and our activities have an impact on those systems. So this now led me to studying environmental and geographical sciences in my undergrad and honors years. And that's when now it gave me the foundation. And when I now got on to the actual work now with my earlier parts of my career, that's when I started getting a deeper understanding. I started becoming familiar that actually there is a concept of sustainability. And that's when now my passion was truly ignited. I realized that sustainability, it isn't just a concept, it's a responsibility. And that's what now kept me committed on this journey of driving change in this space.
Thank you so much. That's so inspiring. Mining has this perception of it is like hard, dust, heavy machinery, not exactly where most young people see themselves in. So what challenged this perception for you, and what helped you to see a space for yourself in this space?
As mentioned, once you get into mining, your perception changes because obviously from the outside, we see it as it's dusty, it's dirty. But when you now get inside, you understand the inner workings of a mine. You understand that there's different departments. You understand that you don't just start digging the ground. There's legislation that drives how you mine. And that legislation is what protects the environment. So as you're mining, there's certain environmental and social conditions that you need to comply to ensure that you not only protect the environment, but you also add positively to both the ecosystem and the communities that are operating around the mining areas. So once you inside, you understand that mining is actually adding positively to the communities and to the ecosystems. There's legislations that drive how you mine. So it's not all bad as people see it on the outside. And there's certain careers that in mining people aren't really aware of. And that's one thing I'm also passionate about, spotlighting those careers that not everybody is aware of. I mean, I could give an example with the medical field that somebody wouldn't necessarily associate anything that's medically related with a mine. But if you come look at it, mines have their own hospitals, they have their own clinics. So there's certain careers that are linked back to mining, but we don't see them as conventional mining careers. So it's not only the blue collar careers, but there's also white collar careers in mining. And mining is quite an interesting space. It's quite diverse. And like that's one thing I'm passionate about, showcasing those secrets in mining that people don't know, the secret careers, the fun part, the interesting, the positive parts of mining.
I think that question answers what happened next. I think the next part of this conversation was to maybe ask ourselves, what are young people already doing, especially with your experience? And I think you've done a wonderful job to show how intertwined and multifaceted the mining industry is, that there are people working at various sectors, though at the end of the day, it's not defined as particularly mining. I might be a doctor working with miners. Many people would be quick to say you're just a doctor, but I think your explanation has broadened the scopes of what it means to be part of the mining industry. But I think there's a part of this question that we would still like just to add to that nuanced conversation we're just having is, what could we be doing to unlock that potential? Because there are various people interacting with the industry already. How do we ensure that the potential is not left untapped?
Yeah. So in order to tap into that potential, I think mentoring and coaching plays a critical role. I mean, it's important to attract young people into mining. As we understand, the world of work is forever changing, and mining is not exempt from that change. And that's why it's important now to bring in young people, to bring in fresh perspectives, to bring in fresh ideas, that as much as there's things that have been done and they've been working for years, we also need to now adopt and change with the times. I mean, if we look at automation in mining now, it also now defines new careers in mining, that careers that might not have been there, such as programming now. I mean, if we're bringing in automation, then you're bringing in a whole new spectrum. So things of coaching, looking at upskilling, bringing in fresh talent, that's quite critical. And for the young people, I would say coaching starting from even before you enter mining, because coming into mining, just like going into any new workspace, it's different from when you are in university, when you're studying. Just by you being in a workspace, it's a shock by itself. So coaching before you even start working, coaching when you start working, so that you're prepared now to move higher up the ladder, and also coaching so that you fully understand the industry and you stay in. Like, as much as there might be a lot of positives, there's also a lot of other things that you need coaching on, so that you forever find it interesting, you forever stay up to date, you forever diversify your skills. For the young people that are already in mining, you need to diversify your skills. I mean, if we're moving from being labor intensive to being more automated, means that there's a whole lot of skills that need to change for everybody to stay relevant, and also to understand the context of where we're operating, to understand not just the mining industry, to understand how business works, because that's also important, to understand what's happening in the world of politics, what's happening globally, because that also now impacts the future of the mines, it impacts the future of the industry. And yeah, that's where young people can play a role, like not just physically on the mine, you can play a role in terms of policy. It expands just beyond the physical mine itself.
How do roles like yours open doors for many more young people to engage in many ways in mining to align with their values and skills?
So, like you mentioned, in my role, it's not just about now looking inside the fence where we're operating, but looking outside the fence. What's the impact on the people around us? What's the impact on the communities? What's the impact on the ecosystem? And when you look at mining in that perspective, you look at mining like any other industry, it's a business as well. And a business needs to operate not just on a local scale. If you're mining, it means you have to sell the product. You're selling it outside the country of operation. You need to understand the politics. You need to understand trade. You need to open your mind. And that's where young people come in. You need to be open-minded. So that's the advice I'd give to young people. Those are the doors that are open, that when it comes to linking careers and mining, don't just box your thinking into the typical traditional careers we've always associated with mining. It's way broader than that, because mining, it's on a global scale. So there is a lot of other careers that might not be directly in the mine, but are somehow related to the mining industry.
I think that's a very good take. I think it once more shows how much of our lives is, already attached to mining even before we conceptualize it as individuals. But let's dream a bit, because we consistently talk of how we're making changes for the future. We want a more inclusive mining industry for young people. In the event where, let's dream that mining becomes youth centered by 2035 or 45, what would that look like exactly? What shifts do we need to actually have to happen? Are they cultural? Are they structural to make this kind of space work as such? But I think just before you answer, we have examples that are working on status quo towards a similar vision. Platforms like the Mining Indaba conference, right? They've consistently had themes that are youth centered or just centered around raising awareness that this could also be a young people space. So the question then becomes, how do these conversations now bring people closer to what is happening?
So, I mean, just looking at that space, young people, they are the future leaders. So like you said, let's look at it. We are already in the future. What do young people bring to the table? Young people, as we've seen currently, they are innovators. They're quite agile. They're so willing to change with the changing times. And that's a positive thing in the mining industry. If times are gonna change, careers are gonna change, you want people who are agile, who are always willing to reskill and upskill themselves. Young people, they always have a purpose. They're always on a mission. It's not about this is how it's been done, let's continue doing it. It's about let's do what works and let's make an impact. And those are the type of people you need. That's the mindset you need. They want to understand how things work so that they can do better. And also they are ready to face on the challenges head on. So for any business, if any business wants to future-proof itself, it's quite important to invest in this young people. And conferences such as the Mining Indaba, they allow young professionals who are up and coming to showcase themselves. They allow young professionals to now interact with people who've been in the industry for a long time. So as much as we want young people in the industry, we also need to learn from people who've been there, people who've made it work for so long. I mean, for mining to still exist for this long, it means that something was being done and it was being done right. So conferences like the Mining Indaba, it allows for that interaction wherein you understand what has been working, but you also link it now with the young minds that are ready to innovate and bring in new ideas. And that's how you future-proof your business. And that's what makes the Mining Indaba such an incredible platform, because you get to have those conversations that show the link between the two.
So I want to understand what was the transition for you from university to the mining world, and what advice would you give someone who's trying to find their footing in this space?
Okay. Thank you. So to start off with my transition, as I mentioned earlier, mentorship plays a critical role because with university, we are learning to think. It's more on the theory part. And as I mentioned, when you enter the workspace, it becomes a culture shock because it's no longer that cushioned environment of the university. So you are not going to get what you got in your exam paper. That's when now you need to start using your mind, the thinking process that you were trained in university, to now apply it to the actual real life problems. And that's where mentorship is very important, because now it's not just about the work itself. It's about now getting a coach and a mentor to understand how the work politics work, to understand how the actual mind works. So you might have that theoretical knowledge, but you also need to know now, well, if it was the streets, we'll call them the street smarts, but you also now to have the work smarts. How do you navigate certain relationships in the workplace? You now have a supervisor you report to, you have colleagues, you've got other people you're working with. Not everybody is coming from the same educational background as you, and you now need to find, how do you relate with those people? How do you communicate with them? How do you coordinate with them? And mentorship and coaching, I cannot stress it enough. It's very important for you to adjust. That's what helped me. It's very important for you so that that person who's walked your path can teach you now how to use the thinking skills you got in university to now make it and be successful in the workspace. And in terms of advice for other young people out there who want to come into the industry, it's to just know where you are, understand where you are, and start where you are. I know we come out of university with these big dreams. We want to go from university student to CEO position, but it's all stepwise. There's certain levels we need to follow. So understand where you are and start there. Learn to use your voice. And by using your voice I don't necessarily mean be loud. People have different communication skills. You need to understand what's your effective communication skills and use that. I mean, there's people like me. I'm not a loud person, but I've learned to use my voice to influence people. So you need to know your voice, know your tone, know your communication skills, and use that. And also use your skills, the skills you've learned in university, use that as the building blocks of your career. Use those skills and tell your story. I mean, the mining sector needs more young people, especially people with different African perspective. And just be out there, understand your communication skills, use your voice, make sure you sing, be visible. If you've got an idea, if you're thinking of something, voice it out. And just remember the basics, stay humble. Like, stay humble, and that will help you get to the top. Arrogance will not get you anywhere.
Thank you very much, Murendeni. And this is it for the Youth Collab Spotlight. A huge thanks to you for your insight and your leadership as such an inspiration, Murendeni.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And if the questions on tech, mining, youth mentorship inspire you, please let's keep engaging, because at the end of the day, as Murendeni has boldly told us, use your voice. Let us know what you think about this episode. Let us know what you think about mining. And let's keep changing the perception on the mining industry, one conversation at a time, one episode at a time. Thank you.